If you guys wonder what machines I use the Bishop Power Wand. I used a 5-stroke liner from them, which I use for mainly outline. I have a 4-stroke right here, which I use for shading. And you can use this for outline too, so. They do make a 3.5 stroke, and it's made for softer shading, but I don't use it because I feel like it's a bit too soft for me. I feel like the 4.0, I pack gray a lot faster, and I'm not able to run a shader to this. I'll end up breaking it every time. The 5-stroke is just too strong for the any shader. Pretty much like a grip wrap, an adhesive wrap. The machine it's pretty much metal on top, and if you tattoo with it without nothing, and when you use Vaseline and get like moistures on it and wearing gloves, it starts to slip as you move around. It starts to slip off, so I wrap this. Let me show you how I wrap it. Machine like this, I put it about right here, a little bit over the tip, about half, I would say quarter inch, half an inch over the tip, and I start wrapping it. It gives you grip, and it kind of absorbs the vibration. Bit about like a quarter inch, and then stick your finger in here and just kind of squeeze it together. You squeeze it together, and it kind of gives you a little room now to put your needle, because this thing does extend a little bit farther out in your needle, but I'll tell you why right now. Let me grab a needle and I'll show you. But first, this is just a protective film so I can wrap the battery. And I wrap the top half of the machine. And that's how my machine looks like while I'm working. But let me show you why I wrapped it like this so you can see the needle. So my shader of choice is pretty much a 15 mag by Da Vinci. Whoop. See how it's like kind of up high? Make a little room, you stick it in, you twist it. So when I'm holding the machine, my fingers are actually on top of the grip and a little bit over the needle, and I feel it. I find it, I work really well like this. I don't wrap it too thick, but just like that. You can see how I have grip where I'm twisting. So when I'm shading, if I want to shade straight and whip up, and if I want to twist it, it gives me grip to just start twisting it to hit angles. And that's my setup for shader. I use a 15 mag, and I use also a 9 mag with this. And this is my liner, so I'm gonna do the same thing. Here's a tip on about wrapping the top part with this is you don't want it to pull it too tight. Just kind of have it right over like this and just let it stick and squeeze it together. You don't want to wrap it tight, because when you wrap it tight, it'll push on the button, and sometimes you can't push on it. Or when it's tight, it's just the buttons are squeezed down and you can't really operate the voltage and everything. So alright, now that my machine is set up, let me show you guys how I set up my ink caps. A little bit of Vaseline. People always ask me, what's the Vaseline for? I apply a thin layer right over the area that I work on, just to supply like lubricant to the surface, and it slides smoother. But don't put too much. If you just put a blob of Vaseline while you're working and you keep applying thick layers of it, you know what happens to that? It end up, when you're outlining or shading, the tip of the shader will scratch against the skin, and when you have too much Vaseline, it starts to clog the needle tip, and you just have a bunch of Vaseline. So do a very thin layer, just enough to be smooth over the surface. Sometimes some areas that like the stencil looks a little bit like washed out or rubbed off, I don't even apply the Vaseline that area. I just outline that area. When the stencil is very faint and you apply Vaseline, you rub on and you tattoo and you do another rub, you end up actually removing that stencil quicker. So that's my advice. When it comes to ink cap, I use 8 ink cap, and I'll show you guys right now. So here's my ink cap. It looks like that. I use I would say this is a 17mm ink cap. So if you place the ink cap on the tray, it slides. And when you're dipping, you touch it, look, it'll slide like that with the ink. So you don't want that. What you want to do is add a little Vaseline underneath and just place it down. Look at this. Now I tap it, it won't go anywhere. So do that. I use 8 ink caps, so do that to all 8. So I have 8 ink caps set up already. I have 1 extra one, and I'll tell you why I have an extra one laying out. Always shake up your ink. So today I'm using black and gray, Horitomo black ink. It's what I use, the shade black and gray. It's just solid black. Shake it up. Always shake it with a napkin on top, just in case sometime the tip doesn't close up correctly. You won't have ink splatting all over your pants, your shoes, whatever. So don't use your glove, your hand to untwist it. Just use a clean napkin to untwist it and make sure it's all the way open. So I have 8 caps. This will be my darkest cap going to my lightest cap. This first cap to the right, I'm gonna fill it up all the way. This is what I use for outline and dark shading. The second cap, I'll go halfway up. This one, you go pretty much half. You start to just half everything. Now it's at a quarter. Then this one is pretty much half of that one. So I would say a good 6-7 drops about right here. Sorry, it's kind of hard pouring with my left hand. And if you guys spill ink on the side of the ink cap, just use the napkin and dab at it, so it keeps your tray station fairly clean. See that gap right here? Stick it in between to remove all that extra ink, because it's gonna get everywhere. Okay, now full cap, half, a quarter, and like 6-7 drops in this one. And then these 4 is so these are my dark tones, then these are my light tones. So these 4 last cap, I do 4 drop to this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's 5. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's 4. Let's try to get 2. Oh, there's 2, and let's do 1. One last one. Oh, there you go. So now this is one drop, 2 drop. It's supposed to be 3 drop and 4 drop, but I added extra drop for that by accident, but it's okay. I'm not too worried about that. Now that the caps are filled, let me get a rinse cup. So now this comes why I have the extra cap. This is what I do. With the rinse cup, I just fill it up my caps. And that's my ink setup, pretty much 8 caps. These 4 are my darker shading. These 4 are for my light, soft shading. And if you get like mid-tones, I use these 3 caps. There is no real rule to what I do when I'm tatting, because I can be, depending on the skin, some skin I can do a 1 drop and it'll come out nicely, but sometimes the 1 drop is too light for certain skin colors, so I have to go to a 2 drop. And sometimes even the light shading could be a 3 drop. So it's really up to your canvas. when you're working on. Everything changes when you tattoo. Things changes all the time, so you gotta adapt to the skin. So that is what I work with. You got the green soap. And pretty much this is my ink tray station setup look like. Vaseline, napkins, green soap, water to rinse the black ink when I transition to different tones, and my extra ink drip if I want to clean out, I just drip here. And that's pretty much it. This is as simple as it gets. You don't want to fill your tray with a bunch of random stuff, having everything in your way. Just keep it simple.